Hello, this is Menelman, and back to science. I'm still reading Parallel Worlds by Mr. Kaku. Um, and came across. I'm almost done. I need to be. I need to return it tomorrow, so I'll probably put in a jam session reading it tonight. But came up on. They were talking, or he was talking about a theory that's called the Goldilocks Zone. There's the one miracle area for something to work, something that shouldn't work when it works, in relation to life on planet Earth. One Goldilocks zone is its distance from the sun. Another is its distance from the moon, the size of the moon. All things that have to be right to make life as we know it exist on Earth. All these have to be done. The distance from Jupiter, the distance from Mars, you know, it and Mars's distance from the asteroid belt, I'm sure, is one. You don't want Mars too close to it because the gravity will start to pull things in, and if it misses Mars, hey, it might not miss us. But yeah. So I was reading that, and they had another thing. I'm gonna look it up here. Yes, book. Go read it. It's good. It's definitely worth it. I'm to chapter 9. Yay. Ah, um, anthropic principles. And I'll read them over, and then I'll tell you the one that I find funny. There are 4 of them. The weak anthropic principle is what we observe about the universe is restricted by the requirement of our existence as observers, which makes sense to me. You can't really look out at something that you don't understand from your standpoint. We can't look at something and say, well, there's not life on Mars. There very well could be. There's just not ours. We don't know what kind it may be. It may be a type foreign to us. So, strong weak, which I think is a fun little word. In at least one world of the many worlds universe, life must develop. These are the arguments for life. Strong anthropic principle. The universe must have the properties for life to develop at some time within it, which makes sense. At some point, it's going to work. Hopefully, at several times. And the final anthropic principle. Intelligence must develop within the universe and then never die out. Well, yeah, good luck in that happening. But the one that I just laughed at, and it's so perfect that they put this around the Goldilocks zones, is the weak anthropic principle. Which basically says we can only observe and understand life as we see and understand it now. Which makes sense. I mean, a lot of people, when they talk about the Goldilocks zones for life, I don't think they realize they're talking our life. Carbon-based bipeds. Or carbon-based. They're not talking silicon-based. People can sit there and bitch and whine all they want. If silicon-based life forms, if nobody could wrap their imagination around them, they wouldn't show up in science fiction as much as they do. In the original Star Trek, you had that little, where they were on the mining planet. You had that little thing that burrowed around, and apparently in a story, one of them actually joined Starfleet. So I found that kind of humorous. In Doctor Who, you had the Ogre from the Key to Time, the Stones of Blood series, which are silicon-based. Star Trek The Next Generation, the crystalline entity. All things that had to have developed on a world that we couldn't have, but nonetheless they developed. So that's the one problem I see with it. You can go out and you can look and say, well, this world can't it's a solid world, but being that it's distance x from the sun, it can't possibly have any life on it. It has no, even if we can detect water on it, there are some, I'm sure there are some that we found by now. They're M class. I'm assuming they're still calling it M class. And going out and saying, well, it has, it's M class and it has water, but it can't have life because it's X, X distance to the sun, and that's outside of this range. Maybe, but that just means that life, exactly as we can predict it, won't show up there. And who's to say that life has to be intelligent? They're talking on Mars. I think that they found evidence of life, but it was more microbial. Well, that's still life. Life still developed there, and it sure as heck isn't isn't an environment that we can be supported in. But even with that, life was there at one time. So I just find I don't get it. How a community can be, that has to be so open-minded, and I guess in a way they have to be, can be so close-minded on their criteria for life. And I think they have to be, because if they tried to study, if they tried to prove, if they tried to, go out and discover every single type of form of life, they'd never get anywhere. At least with our form of life, they have a standard. They have, okay, we developed here because this, and this. Okay, let's go look for planets or systems with these criteria. Because, hey, we came up, so there's a good chance somebody else may have. And that work, I can see that being the case. And maybe it's just, up to common people like me to go, well, hey, you're forgetting these things. But of course they can say, well, hey, go study and you look for them. Because, hey, you're right. But we ain't got the money to look for them. We can only do what we have the funding to do, and since our funding is very limited, we have to go with what we know. We can't theorize these things. You can't look like it conquered the world. The big bad alien came from Venus, of all things, which with its temperature should not even be even theoretically possible. It's a runaway greenhouse. So it's something to think about. I mean, if you look at sci-fi series, you're always going to find some interesting beings. A lot of them are humanoid. Some of them were humanoid and aren't now, like the Daleks. Due to radiation from the World War, their final evolution was a creature that could fit inside the Dalek travel machine. So, you've got the I think it was the ambassador from Alpha Centauri in I want to say John Pertwee era, but I think it was in Tom Baker. It's just this weird slug-looking thing, but it's possible. Get a planet with an overabundance of water. Maybe you would get some creature like that. There are a few slug creatures that showed up in Doctor Who. But yeah, just ideas like that, or going out and saying the Borg. People who were a humanoid species, but for one reason or another, maybe their sun started to die, so they needed to convert to cyborgs, or some other reason. Just because there ain't. We may see, we may go out and find a dead sun with some plants still around it. Who's to say there isn't a machine world? Go back to Star Trek 1 with V'ger apparently coming across a machine world. So something to think about. Go think about it, comment on it, and hopefully I'll talk some more about science later.